Hello, I'm John Grom, and welcome to our 90-second Right and Left discussion forum. We hold our discussion forums twice monthly to demonstrate civil, productive, and open-minded discussion. Today, our panel will try to make sense of the election of Donald Trump. Specifically, does his election constitute a real change in the way we are governed and in our international relations? Today's panel, beginning on my left, is Bryan Laubaugh, president of R&B Financial Services. On his left is Jerry Ritzman, partner in Ritzman Pharmacies. On his left is Patty Haskins, retired math teacher and current member of the Wadsworth City Council. Bryan, many people are predicting big changes in the political, economic, and cultural life of the United States as a result of this election. When you look into your crystal ball, what do you see?
It's very cloudy. My crystal ball is very cloudy. There will be changes, I believe, from the standpoint of how the government interacts with business. We've seen since the election of Mr. Trump, the stock market seems to like what he said. It's up several thousand points, I think a little over 2,000 points, which is a big move. We're closing in on 20,000 on the Dow. So if the market is, and as most people say, the market looks out into the future, and if that holds true, there will be changes in some very important things that will be more pro-growth and pro-business.
Like regulations.
Regulations, the tax code, individual taxes, corporate taxes, some of the trade arrangements that we have with different countries I think are going to come under a microscope. I think from a business standpoint, if all holds true, we're going to be in for a recovery that we have grown accustomed to, but which we did not see over the last 8 years.
No, I mean, it was a recovery, but it was pretty weak.
It was very, very weak. I think it was the weakest ever.
Yeah.
Just from looking at the numbers, I think we'll see the country move positively when it comes to employment, when it comes to job creation. So a lot of those economic factors which bode well for people. On the other side of the coin, I think we're in for a rough ride when it comes to dealing with a Trump presidency. He obviously has a pretty thin skin as far as what I can see. That's just my own opinion. He takes to Twitter, and if you don't have it, you might want to just get it and follow Mr. Trump, because he comes up with some pretty crazy things. And I don't know if he's just certifiably crazy, or if he's crazy like a fox, because he sets up some things and situations with the media. I don't know if you got a chance to watch a little bit of his press conference, but it was a circus. A couple of rings going there, and it's going to be interesting, and that's the only word that I can come up with as far as how he manages, the presidency.
Once he was elected, I thought he might moderate his style a little bit, but he hasn't.
No, that's. I've always thought, and this is, we need to get out our tinfoil hats here, that once the men in the black sunglasses sat down with the president and explained to him how things really are in the world, that most presidents have a tendency to moderate their discourse. And what we've seen, the various intelligence agencies, the folks that have tried to sit him down and say, listen, it's a little more complicated than what you're making it out to be on Twitter and your outbursts. He's just summarily dismissed that as fake news. And that to me is troubling, because we do have people and assets in place that we rely on and that are risking their lives on behalf of this country, and to just in essence brush them off, I'm concerned about that. So we'll have to wait and see how long it takes to wear down Mr. Trump.
Jerry, you can either put on or take off your tinfoil hat and let us know
well,
what you
let's
think.
keep it on. And Brian, I'll just maybe give a couple observations on two things that you said. Thin skin. I've not heard our president-elect ever say, "Well, gee, I was mistaken there, or should have done that differently," and that's troubling to me when somebody can't admit that at times they were wrong, or that maybe they weren't or should have done things differently.
He came close over that video when he was getting off the trailer.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
whatever.
But I mean, whomever that it gives me a question mark there. And you talk about the security things, not then having that briefing or that information and saying, well, gee, it is different. That troubles me. However, to the bigger question, will things change? They probably will, and our perception of it will change on how it's reported in the media. However, we have the same federal and state courts. We have the same U.S. Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives. We have the same state officials, state courts. We have the same law enforcement officials from the federal to the state level. So there's a lot of levels there, and he is the president. He's not a dictator. And so I'm trusting that.
Well, you know that, and I know that, but I'm worried about whether or not he knows that.
Well, but whether he knows that or not, I'm thinking that all those other levels are going to provide the filters, the checks and balances, as it was designed to make us so that we really don't go south as far as some of the social and issues and so forth. So it's going to change, but he's not a dictator.
Patty, I've only seen you once since the election. Have you recovered?
I don't know. Yeah. So, when you originally sent this question out, you used the word revolution. And if this created a revolution, I think many times when we have a change in party and then change in president, you do see a difference, which could be classified as a revolution. When President Obama was elected, I don't know that created a revolution so much as it brought in the dawn of the Tea Party. And I really thought that was a revolution. He had been in office for a year. The Tea Party was formed and it grew, and they had great impact upon the country and our government. So much so that, of course, in 2010, the complete switch over of the House and the Senate to the Republican side. And they also, because it was the year of the census, then they were able to do the setup of the districts, the congressional districts in each state, because that is done by the census, but then it's controlled by the party at that time and the governor at that time. And they were able to rewrite those, so much so that I forget the number, but so many of our state legislatures now are Republican, as are 70% or something of our governors.
Well, combined, the state legislatures and the federal legislatures have gained 1,042 Republican seats in the last 12
right, and that years. To me was a big revolution, because that did cause a big change in politics, I think. In some good ways and in some bad ways, and depending on what side you're on, you're going to argue that differently.
You're chalking some of that up to the 2010 census.
Yes.
All right.
A great deal of that came.
Not necessarily people being fed up with that.
It was a combination of the two, but because of the way the census, and because it was done that year when the Republicans had gotten into power, they were then to redraw districts to make them more favorable to the Republican side. Yeah. And now, granted, both parties have done this over the years. This is not something that just Republicans have done. It's been stated that it was done to a little greater effect, I think, in 2010 by the Republicans, and some of those districts are bizarre when you look at them. But that did make a big change. You know, in the same way, I think, you know, there's going to be big changes, I believe, with what President Trump-elect Trump is going to do. And I agree with everything that Bryan and Jerry have said. I think, though, we might see that revolution on behalf of the left, however, within a year, much the same as we saw the resistance and the opposition from the Tea Party starting in 2009.
Do you think that Barack Obama is going to be accepted and respected as the head of the Democratic Party over the next 4 years?
I don't know that he'll be the head of the Democratic Party. Very frankly, I don't know that anybody is right now. That's one of the problems.
Yes.
You know, the party does seem to be in a bit disarray, and there's no, you know, you could maybe look at Cory Booker or somebody else as an up-and-coming Democrat, but we don't have those figures to look to. I believe, though, that Obama and Eric Holder, if I'm not mistaken, have already stated that they're going to start working on community organizing and starting at the grassroots, much the same as the Tea Party stated. And dependent upon where Trump's policies lead us, that party could, or that group could enact a great deal of change within the country and make things difficult for President Trump. I don't know. It was interesting. I don't think that, Trump is being handed a much better economy than Obama was handed.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. So I think, yes, it's going to improve, but there's been a lot of groundwork. I know it was slow, but if you consider the economy he started with, and they start off with the auto bailout, and that saved thousands of jobs right there. So he came in the same way, I think, that Trump's coming in. But then he had a long way to go. Trump is being handed a much better economy. I am concerned, as Jerry said, and as Bryan said, on the international level, all of the discussion about Russia and the way we are dealing with them, and it's not that you have to start a war with Russia. I don't think anybody is saying that, but we need to hold Russia accountable for its acts. I get concerned when Trump does not want to admit that Russia was responsible for the hacking of the emails.
He said probably.
That's as good as, but then he always says, but it could have been China or, and he always continues with that.
But you're pretty sure it was.
Well, yes, because all of the intelligence agencies have said it was. And in the
They
report,
they also said that Trump's lawyer was in Prague.
no,
And they had the wrong
no, the
guy.
intelligence agencies did not say that.
Oh, didn't they?
No, they did not say that. They had gotten that report. They never said that was true. Never.
I had trouble making sense. I listened to so many definitions of that on CNN and elsewhere.
No.
And I couldn't figure out what in the world they were talking about.
There was, and I think it started as opposition research, and it came from a British intelligence guy, that they had this, and some refer to it as a dossier, but it's not really even a dossier. It was just this report of all these things supposedly Trump had done that Russia could embarrass him with. Every news station I listened to said, I did not listen to BuzzFeed, obviously. Every station I listened to said, listen, we can't verify any of this, but this information has been passed on to Donald Trump. That was, as far as the hacking goes, though, he made it again in his press conference last night, that he said that the hacking wasn't it great that we got these results from the hacks we found out this about. Yeah. But then the first thing he does today is points Giuliani to this group to stop hacking because heaven forbid it should happen to us. He talked about that report, and that definitely was fake news. And he was really upset about it. He called, and this is another problem. He called the intelligence agencies, they were in Nazi Germany because of what they had done. this man has been the biggest purveyor of fake news that I have ever seen on a political level, whether it be President Obama was born in Kenya, whether it was Ted Cruz's father was involved in the Kennedy assassination, whether Hillary Clinton was a murderer. Fake news is fine as long as he's stating it, but when it's against him, then it's Nazi Germany.
Patty still has the tinfoil hat on. I'm sorry I started that.
I don't have a tinfoil hat on.
Well,
no.
I understand. You know, one of the points I'd like to make is that we knew about this hacking. Hacking has been going on
for years.
For years.
Yes.
You can point to China and the 12 million. The hack that they got 12 million records from.
Yeah.
It was
20. Yeah, it was a lot.
It was a ton.
Yeah.
So we've known all about this, and now all of a sudden it's newsworthy. Why didn't, when the report originally come out a year or so ago, that that the intelligence agency said the Russians are doing X? Why wasn't something done about it? And then it all it's